My hands were dusted with flour when my phone buzzed on the counter. I was in my Aunt Ruth's kitchen, helping her make apple butter. The same recipe she taught me when I was 7. She stood at the stove humming softly, stirring with a big wooden spoon. For one quiet moment, she looked completely like herself. I glanced at my screen. Bank alert. Transfer completed. $42,000. Sent 11 minutes ago. To an account I did not recognize. I set the phone face down on the counter. I looked at my aunt. Still humming. Still stirring. Completely unaware. Almost ready? Sweetheart, she said. I know, I replied. Take your time. What I did not tell her was this. 3 weeks earlier, I had already moved $175,000 into a protected account. That $42,000 was all I left behind on purpose. It was bait. And someone had just taken it. If you have ever been the only person in your family who sees the disaster coming while everyone else pretends it is not there, you will understand what happened next. My name is Mia. I am 37. Aunt Ruth is not my biological aunt. She married into the family when my mom was in college. But she became the center of our world anyway. She hosted every Thanksgiving. She labeled photo albums back to the early 1960s. She remembered every birthday and every anniversary without a calendar. After my mother died 4 years ago, Aunt Ruth became the person I called when I did not know how to be a person anymore. Then, the forgetting started. Small at first. She repeated the same question 5 minutes apart. She lost her keys in the freezer. She started sentences and drifted off. Like the rest of the words were hiding behind you. Her doctor confirmed early Alzheimer's. Slow, but progressing. My sister, Kara, cried for 2 days. Then she buried herself in hospital shifts and told herself that as long as she was moving, she did not have to feel it. So the practical reality landed on me. Finances, paperwork, appointments, medication schedules. That part did not scare me, because of what I do for work. I am a paralegal. 8 years in elder law. I have seen the patterns. I have seen the helpful relative who appears out of nowhere. I have seen the warm voice and the big smile. I have seen the way accounts empty quietly while the family tells themselves they are being paranoid. I did not want to be paranoid, but I was not going to be naive. My cousin Derek showed up in March. Cousin is generous. He was the son of my uncle's first marriage, which meant he was Aunt Ruth's stepson by a marriage that ended before I was born. He had barely been in our lives. A holiday call here and there. A vague social media like. And that was it. Then suddenly he was standing in her living room with 2 suitcases and a large smile. He said he heard she was not doing well. He said he felt terrible she was alone. He said he was between jobs. Just a transition, he said. What better time to show up for family? Aunt Ruth was delighted. She made up the guest room with fresh sheets. She cooked his favorite meal, even though she needed me to remind her twice what it was. Kara texted me from work. This is actually sweet. Maybe we were too hard on him. I did not reply right away. I watched Derek. The first red flag came 2 weeks later. I stopped by to help set up her new prescription schedule. Derek was at the kitchen table with her laptop open. He closed it fast when I walked in. Just helping her pay some bills, he said. She does those with me, I replied. Pleasant and calm. We have a system. Oh, I didn't know, he said, smiling without moving his eyes. I'll leave it to you then. The second red flag came after that. I was sorting her mail and found an envelope from a notary service across town. Not her bank. Not her attorney. A strip mall notary. I held it up. Do you remember going to a notary recently? Aunt Ruth frowned. Thinking hard. Gerald took me somewhere last week. she said softly. Then, she hesitated. Or not Gerald. I get mixed up sometimes. Gerald had been dead for years. I opened the envelope. It was a receipt acknowledging a notarized document. The document itself was not inside. Only the receipt. Description: financial power of attorney. I sat with that piece of paper a long time. The third red flag removed any doubt. I was on the back porch with Aunt Ruth, drinking chamomile tea, watching leaves fall. Derek was inside on the phone. His voice was low, but not low enough. Once the paperwork is fully processed, she won't remember, he said. I'm managing it. The house alone is worth like $320, and she's got savings. I stood up slowly, careful not to make noise. I walked inside, down the hall, toward his voice. The legal stuff is almost done, he said. A few more weeks and I can start moving things. I went back to the porch and sat down next to Aunt Ruth. She smiled at a bright red bird in the feeder. He's so red, she said. He is, I replied. My hands were steady. My mind was not. That night I opened my laptop and started building a file. I pulled 3 months of account statements. I looked for patterns. At first, it was small withdrawals. $50, $200. Then it grew. A wire transfer to an Arizona account that matched Derek's return address on mail. An online purchase that looked like luggage. 2 payments to a financial advisor I had never heard of. And beneath all of it, the same arithmetic I have seen in case files. Someone draining what does not belong to them. I called an attorney friend who specializes in this. I could not use my own firm for conflict reasons. She listened, quiet and focused, then said the words I already knew were coming. The power of attorney is the key. If he has a valid one, he can move money legally. She cannot recall signing it. I said, and the day that notary receipt is dated? Her caregiver texted me that she had a bad episode. She thought it was 1989. She asked for her mother. My attorney paused. That is capacity impairment at time of execution. That is grounds to invalidate it. I need to move fast, I said. Yes, she replied. You do. I did not sleep. I pulled property records. Her house was still clean. No liens. No transfer. Not yet. Then I checked her life insurance policy. She had the same policy for 20 years. The beneficiary was a small charitable fund she set up in my mom's memory. Within the last 60 days, the beneficiary had been changed. To Derek. That was the moment grief turned into a cold, hard decision. I was not letting him do this to her. The next morning, I was at the bank when it opened. I brought documentation, the notary receipt, the capacity evidence, the unauthorized transfers, a letter from my attorney outlining emergency steps. I spoke to the branch manager and the bank's compliance officer like I was presenting a case. Not emotional. Precise. By mid-morning, her accounts were flagged. A protected account was established under joint oversight. I moved $175,000 into it. I left $42,000 in the original account. Enough to look normal. Enough to make Derek think his plan was still working. Enough to let him step fully into the trap. That afternoon, my attorney filed an emergency guardianship petition. We also filed a report with Adult Protective Services. We contacted the insurance company to freeze beneficiary changes pending investigation. Then I went home and waited. The hardest part was not the legal work. The legal work is muscle memory for me. The hardest part was walking into Aunt Ruth's kitchen every day and acting normal while Derek moved around making easy small talk. He offered to run errands. He held doors. He smiled at me over her head like we shared a secret. I smiled back. On day 4, Kara called. She heard I was doing legal stuff, and she was scared. "I'll explain when it's done," I told her. "I need you to trust me right now." "You're scaring me," she whispered. "I know. I'm sorry. Just a few more days." She went quiet. "Is Ruth safe?" "She is," I said. "I promise." On day 8, the bank alerted me. The original account had been accessed. Derek attempted to wire out the remaining money, $42,000. The transfer was flagged by the hold and rejected. The fraud officer called me within the hour. I was standing in a grocery aisle when he explained the attempted transfer and the denial. "Thank you," I said. I hung up and exhaled one word in my head. That evening, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. "What did you do?" Derek's voice was tight, controlled, like he was gripping a steering wheel too hard. "I protected my aunt," I said. "You had no right." "I have every right," I replied. "I am her designated emergency contact. And in about 72 hours, I will also be her legal guardian. Your power of attorney was executed on a day she had documented capacity impairment. It will be invalidated." Silence. Then he tried again. Softer. "She's family." Have you ever heard someone say family like it is a permission slip to steal? Comment yes or no. "She is not your target," I said quietly. "You have not called her in years. You came here because you saw an opportunity." He swallowed. I could hear it. "You need to be out of her house by tomorrow morning," I said. "My attorney will be there at 9. Adult Protective Services will be there after. If you stay, you will be explaining a lot of documents." He hung up. He was gone by sunrise. A neighbor texted me that a car pulled out early with headlights off, like a person who did not want to be seen. At 9, I arrived with my attorney. Aunt Ruth was at the kitchen table eating toast and watching the bird feeder. She looked up and her face brightened in that way it does on a good day. "Mia," she said. "Hi," I replied, sitting across from her. She tilted her head. "Derek left. Did you know he was leaving?" "Yes," I said, taking her hands. "I did." She looked genuinely worried. Was something wrong with him? I chose my words carefully. He was not who he said he was. "But you are safe. You are completely safe." She nodded slowly, like that was all she needed. Then she pointed at the stove. "I made extra toast. Do you want some?" I almost cried. Not because of the toast, because of the trust inside the question. 12 days later, the court granted emergency guardianship. The power of attorney was formally invalidated. The judge noted the capacity evidence was clear. The life insurance beneficiary was restored to the charitable fund. The unauthorized transfers were referred to the county investigator. That part is still moving through the system. When I finally told Kara everything, she went through denial. Anger at me for not telling her sooner. Grief for what almost happened. And then a long silence. We sat on the porch with tea until it got dark. "How did you know?" she asked. "I've seen it," I said. "The pattern, the timing, the smile." She shook her head. "I never would have thought to look." "That's what people like him count on," I said. "Family doesn't want to believe it." That winter, Aunt Ruth and I made apple butter again. That day she remembered the recipe on her own. Not perfectly, but enough. She stood at the stove humming, stirring with the wooden spoon. I sat at the counter watching her. I thought about the bank alert and the flour on my hands. And the moment I set my phone face down and decided this ends here, Aunt Ruth turned and looked at me. For a second, something sharp and present crossed her face. "You take care of things," she said. It was not a question. I do. I replied. She nodded once, like something had been settled, then turned back to the pot. If you want more stories where the lie walks into the trap and the receipts do the talking, hit subscribe.